Hey, coming up on Small Town Charm, let's talk about the latest Board of Commissioners meeting, the one where all the new people got voted in. Public comments. I got booed in the public comments. Boo! And we'll talk about the Goodall Project, new zoning, who's mayor, who's vice mayor, who voted for him, who didn't vote for him, and more, all coming up on Small Town Charm. Well, hello, friends. Welcome into Small Town Charm once again. My name's Daniel. We got Chris. We got Mike. As always, if you like the show, please subscribe. Please like it. Share it with a friend. Leave us an honest review if you like the show. That does help us out a lot. So, first off, how are you guys doing? It's been like a couple weeks since we've done this. How's it going? We actually, this time we actually did just sit down pretty much and start recording. We normally have some time to prepare, but not today.
Yeah, I'm doing good.
It took everything in me to not boo you during that intro. I'm gonna boo you at some point during this episode.
I've gotten used to it.
He is used to it at this point.
What's funny is this show, we're doing this very late. We're recording this episode very late. Thanks to I just realized you guys have a lot more kids than I do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I was like, man, why is it so hard to schedule this? I have all this free time. I don't know what's wrong with you. What's wrong with you guys? Oh wait, you have.
Well, it's really not my kids this week.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay.
My social life is filled up.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Another episode.
Okay.
No, 100% my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. My kid got out of basketball practice at 9:15.
Yikes.
Got here at 9:30.
That's the thing that it's like, it sucks when you have a whole bunch of kids with different ages, because I know like with younger kids, they always make it like they make the practices and stuff really early. And that means the games a lot of times are like really early in the morning.
Right.
But then, as you get older, that everything kind of shifts later. But then the problem is when you have kids of all different ages, you don't get to start waking up any later or going to bed any earlier. It's just all day.
Yeah.
I do love how like practice schedules have somehow morphed to like just being completely inconsiderate of like normal children's bedtimes. Right? It's just like, well, what time feasibly could the parents still bring the kids here?
Right. As long as it works for
as long as you can get there,
Yeah.
then we're gonna have the practice.
Yeah, our kid's doing like winter training, indoor soccer training, and his starts at 6:30, goes to 8, which like is not late, but it's in Cool Springs, So like you got to figure out how to eat dinner. I know like it's not very unique, everybody has that problem, but it's just like 8:00, and then if you didn't eat dinner beforehand, you got to get dinner, and then like you're getting back here, and like the kid's sweaty, so he's got to get a shower. It's like 10:00 easy, you're going to bed on a weeknight, on a school night.
I think I'll quote someone from the 411, or maybe it was Nolensville community this week. Somebody was commenting about like just normal like suburban life stuff, like what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And somebody said, sounds like rich people problems.
Oh,
100%.
Do you remember that comment?
That was to Caitlin. That was my wife.
Well, speaking of late nights, the BOC meeting happened recently. The first one with all the new commissioners. There's a lot. I saw some people earlier this week, and they asked me like, "What are you guys going to talk about next on the podcast?" And I was like, "Well, we got to talk about this meeting." They're like, "Yeah, well, what about after that?" And I was like, "Well, honestly, this meeting might take us 2 episodes just to get through, which is appropriate because the meeting itself, I was there and I left. I've been there, I think, a little over 3 hours when I left.
Man.
And they had just kind of really started to crack the surface of the zoning discussion, which is kind of what I was there for. But I don't know how late they ended up going. I know they have a thing like where they don't introduce new items after 10 or something now. Is that when there's no voting items? So
no voting items past 10. PC has it past 10:30.
Yeah. So it's long. Like that's one of the things, like I don't, respect to all the commissioners, because it's just, I have a really short attention span, and it's hard. Like I just can't imagine being in a situation where, I can like grab my phone for a minute and like, tune out when they're talking about something that I'm not really paying attention to or whatever. But if you're up there on that thing, or if you're any of the town staff, you gotta pay attention the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's also by their own doing, though. So
yeah,
I don't like that whole that rule or bylaw that they wrote in for both commissions, because so the premise is we don't want to make voting like a midnight thing where everybody's kind of tired and you're trying to get through it just to get home type of thing, right? Just subconsciously. But like the only reason these meetings are going so long is because everybody keeps like not progressing the meeting. Everybody keeps debating over and over and over and over again, which I never understood because the way it's supposed to work, Robert's rules of meetings, you're supposed to talk for 10 minutes. You get the floor for 10 minutes and you not necessarily justify your vote, you give your reasonings for the vote that you're going to make. And the way they run the meetings is they're debating the entire time, fully knowing that they're not going to change anybody's mind and they're not going to change their own mind. So it's just pandering. Like they're pandering for their base to get their base energized. And it's not a their side versus our side thing. Like Derek 100% does that. He over talks, over debates. Like you don't have to nail this point 15 times. You're
Yeah.
not gonna change it. Like they all know. If I know how everybody's gonna vote, they all know how everybody's gonna vote. Like on the last podcast,
Yeah.
like I told you that Haley's gonna become mayor. Literally, what happened? Like
I agree with you, Mike. Like I do think that the endless debates that occur are, I guess, more just to like win talking points in front of whoever's there or for the recording, like whoever's going to watch it. I don't actually think it ever serves a purpose. I do think that the meetings are better than they used to be. Under Boma, if you remember,
depends
under Boma, they could run a really efficient meeting because they basically had the meeting
before the meeting.
before
Yeah,
the meeting.
they all just knew what they
And
were
so
gonna
everybody just like agreed on how they were going to vote on everything.
In that aspect, you're right.
Right.
The meetings towards the end of BOMA, like 2019, those were entertaining meetings.
Yes.
Like those were
Yeah,
awesome.
like once Derek joined the board and all of a sudden it wasn't a unified vote.
Once the live stream
Like-
started, and then they had to be careful what they say, but then they would forget that it's live stream too. Remember that time they had, like, it was during COVID, they went on Zoom, and Jimmy, like, he called out Heather Bates on the live stream, and then he accused Derek of leaking it. I'm like, this is perfect.
Well, there's I think we should just kind of walk through it because I think there was enough interesting things that happened in the meeting to every step of the way to last us through it. Of course, you talked about booing me. That was a highlight for me.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we should just dive in.
Okay, sure.
Should we just go from beginning to end?
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
I have
that's
the
best
agenda
place to
pulled up.
start. So, I mean, I think you should start it. 'Cause
Sure.
You were there. You were actually in the crowd. You heard all the public comments. Obviously, Terry Adams.
Booed you.
Yeah, well, he gave up and gave a pretty impassioned speech about growth and
Nails and tires.
Yeah, like
Nails.
nails and tires. And,
How you wouldn't buy a car with a nail in a tire?
yeah, and I think he actually called out this podcast.
He did. He called it small town harm.
Oh,
which
yeah.
that was the first thing I corrected him. Which is so. Here's the thing. Let's just talk about this because I won't name the commissioner. It was not Derek, but there was another commissioner on the board,
Male or female?
female,
Okay.
who the second
Almost got it.
That
You
doesn't
almost
help me.
got it.
the second that Terry said small town harm. First off, I died laughing. I was like, this is so perfect. Like I was gonna go up and plug the podcast at the beginning of my speech anyway, but when he did that, it was like a softball lob. I was like, thank you so much. But one of the commissioners kind of smirked and found me in the crowd and was like, how's he reacting? And I met eyes with her and I was laughing already, and she was like trying to like hold her laughter in. I'll tell you after we stop recording who it was. But I think she was probably relieved that I thought it was funny. But there was no fair play. That's fine. That's great. It didn't bother me at all.
Can we just point out the fact that, I mean, granted, we know that there's a handful of people listening to this because we see the stats.
Right.
Far more than our followers, maybe. Like, not everyone's willing to like a page, but they're willing to listen to the podcast. I just think it's so humorous how terrified these people are of three dudes drinking beer and just talking.
I know.
Like, they're so terrified that they're going to mention it at the first public meeting.
I think because
after the election.
I think the reason for that too, because if you do if you go on a Facebook, if you watch it on Facebook, Facebook does the view counter, and they don't understand what the view counter is. They don't.
Sure, they just think.
And
that
I'm not gonna
that-
explain it here because it's funny that like it's 1,500 views, and then it's like, oh crap, these guys are getting 1,500 views, which we are. 1,500 views. But so that's the power in numbers. Like I remember with the Insider, the minute that whole thing flipped in the eyes of the people that opposed me, meaning like they took it seriously and it was a very big attempt to like knock me down, was when I crossed over 25,000 views and I felt good and confident enough about posting the view count on the bottom of the website. And it was like, okay, now I have 25,000 all-time views. Like this is pretty impactful.
Yeah.
And then the views kept climbing, and like the higher the views, the more like the more the bigger the attempt to like discredit, and the discreditation is always the same. It's always like they put you on a pedestal, and then they knock you off that pedestal right away. So for me, with the Insider, it was always like you're biased, like this is fake news. It's like no, it's a podcast. This isn't like this is only your opinion. Yeah, of
course it is.
It's a blog. Like this is what
Well,
happens.
this is a perfect time for our disclaimer, Daniel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're just here for entertainment purposes only. We are not journalists. We're not trying to say that we are news. Nothing that we say is true. We believe it's true. If you think it's true or don't think it's true, either way, we encourage you to do your own research. So don't sue us. Go do some research if you hear something that sounds interesting. All right, back.
Yeah, and then the same thing's happening with Small Town Charm is they'll build you up just to tear you down. So it's like these guys are harmful. They're harming because they have microphones and cameras, and they're obviously friends with Derek and Lisa, and these are not facts. These are opinions. It's like, yeah, like these are only opinions. We, out of everybody in town, the three of us are probably in the top 99 percentile of how much we pay attention and how much we actually know what's going on. So like our opinion is a lot more informed than most people's on this on this topic, but it's still just an opinion. I have complete bias. Like I am a pro walkability, pro mixed use, anti sprawly, anti insolvent neighborhoods. Like if that wasn't clear, I hate sprawly subdivisions.
Yeah.
Especially new ones that I have to end up paying for 25 years from now.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there tonight. So Terry gives this impassioned speech, and I'm calling his name out because he's going to be on the planning commission. So like it's he's kind of a
Well, and
official.
fair enough. We've also invited him
on
to
the
be
show.
on the podcast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Coming?
I don't know. It's an open invitation.
Yep. Anytime, he wants
Anytime,
to be on.
Terry. Anytime, Terry.
Yep. There's a room. We have a fourth. We bought a fourth mic. We have another one. You could come on. Gave a very impassioned speech with some really poor metaphors, like not buying a car because there were nails in the tire when you could just fix the tire. Anyway, mention
Trying
how-
to fix the tire. We're trying to fix the
right.
tire.
Mentioned that it's time for all the small town harm rhetoric to end, and us to come together and have healing and kiss babies and love each other and which
I roll.
yeah, because I mean, where was I didn't hear anybody calling for healing and coming together when a couple of their candidates were, running a campaign on the back of a rumor and smear campaign that was dirty enough to get sued over.
Yep.
No one was calling for healing then. It's only after it's almost like let's be nice to my people. That's what I got from that. Is a couple of my people got elected. You should be nice to them. You should be nice to them now, because we're here now. Like, let us just do what we want. And so that happened. Again, I didn't take any offense to him calling out the podcast. I thought it was hilarious, but also I was like, thanks for the opportunity. The first thing I'm going to do is get up there in my citizen comments and correct them, tell them the correct name of the show.
Yeah.
Which he was like settling into his seat still at that point. He didn't catch it the first time, so I corrected him.
High-fiving his buddies.
Yeah, a lot of glad handing and self pats on the back for that one.
Screw those nails. Screw those nails.
So apparently the thing I didn't recall exactly what got me booed, but Terry claims that what they booed me for after when he apologized later on Facebook and didn't really apologize. He said he would apologize, and then he spent 90%, literally statistically 90% of his comments explaining why he was right to do so, and I was wrong to have done what I did. Which, number one, I don't apologize for anything I said. But what apparently got me booed was that I called out another citizen, mocked another citizen his comments. The other citizen was Larry Feltz, a former alderman, who got up and said that our current zoning is working, and we need to throw the whole thing in the trash, the zoning or back to the planning commission. I think he said in the trash where it belongs, or throw it back to the planning commission, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Felds is the king of hot takes. Remember, like,
Well, truly poor hot takes.
yeah, it was like this awful hot takes.
Like
Remember,
the hot pocket of takes.
Yes,
like
yes.
when we were like when the
The
referendum,
edges are still frozen, but the middle is lava.
what's that meme with the pie? The lady completely burns the pie and then
know what
blames
you're
the
talking
Marie
about.
Calendar or whatever.
Yeah.
Thanks Marie Calendar. Thanks Larry Felds. Yeah, I mean, remember when the referendum vote was about to happen, and he like in a actual town meeting, he told the town that we were performing a coup.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, now he stands up and says that we should not change zoning. This one's working just fine. Like, look at all the people that chose to move here because of the zoning. Like, no, dude, the zoning's trash. This is the reason why you had to leave 15 minutes early to get to a meeting 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, you only think the zoning's not trash if you're like that old and never leave your house. Like,
yeah.
Or do you think
or you
the
just don't
zoning
go anywhere in town.
Or do you think the zoning's fine because you take it, the same thing I mentioned earlier, you take it personally,
Personally,
that
that's right.
somebody's trying to undo something you worked so hard on. The
Right.
same reason why he got offended when we did
Yeah,
the charter change.
I'll be the first one to say, like, because I think this is like where the bully kind of comments come from and stuff like that. It's like we don't always do a great job, self-admittedly, of like giving some respect where it is due.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were people that served before any of our friends or like any of us got involved in politics. They did do some things right, because at the end of the day, like I wouldn't live in my house if they didn't let Bent Creek get built.
Right.
Same thing for you, Summerlin.
Yep.
Like, yeah, are there a bunch of things that are wrong in all these neighborhoods? Certainly. But yeah, I mean, like we literally wouldn't have a Nolansville as we know it without some of their decisions. Now, I think that I'm willing to go that far. They want us to go a lot farther. And
Yeah.
to just say like, oh, well, it's all great. And it's like, no, like it's great that you built the neighborhoods, but like you never did anything to plan for those neighborhoods actually getting built.
So I'm a big stand-up comedy guy.
You?
Yeah.
Really?
One of my favorite jokes, one of my favorite skits, is Chris Rock talking about like guys flexing how great they are by doing the bare minimum in like fatherhood. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I take care of my kids. Oh, I spend time with my kids. It's like, yeah, you're supposed to. So like when like the whole time you were talking about like they did allow Bent Creek to get built. Like they did kind of form a town and that we all ended up living in. It's like that's your job. You were elected to lead a town. Like you let a subdivision get built. Like that's your job.
Right.
That's nothing to be putting up statues and naming bridges over.
Well, to your point too, literally all they did was say yes. Like they just, hey,
And it
yes,
took
you
a
can come
month.
build here.
Right, rubber
Like they didn't
stamped
put
it,
any
basically.
money in or anything like that. Like, I mean, the kind of infrastructure changes that really needed to happen in Nolansville all along. Like, I'm still shocked that like a developer like never actually paid
Yeah.
to like widen a road or like do some sort of like major infrastructure fix.
Yeah.
All we did was like bank a bunch of impact fees
and then spend it all on one road.
and spend it all on one
Sunset
road.
Road.
Yeah. So
Because Brentwood told us to.
we've recently got some great feedback about dumbing it down for people because we like when we talk we tend to forget the cameras are there and then we talk within each other and it's almost like an inside joke, but that should be we should clarify that. Since the inception of the town in 1996, we collected impact fees. After I think we got impact fees like early 2000s. For every single penny of impact fees we collected up until 2019, we spent on a turn lane on Sunset Road.
Yeah.
Like that's so
Like
when
20 years of
and
impact fees.
20 years of it. So every subdivision that's causing all this traffic, like you mentioned, Bent Creek, Bellinger, whatever. I'm not gonna name them all. Every one of them, the entire benefit package that we got from that got us a turn lane on Sunset. So when you were saying that's kind of why I referenced Chris Rock when you were saying like they did run a town. They didn't though. They kept the bench warm for an actual commission to come in and actually run a town.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, everyone who lives here all this time, these impact fees paid for one thing.
Yep.
Sunset
And it's
Road.
like the most unuseful thing. Like
a turn lane into all kinds of places that don't need a turn lane.
right. Like we live in Bent Creek.
To a road that creates probably more traffic on the Nolans Road
Yeah.
than any other road.
Yeah,
Like
that light is terrible.
If you bulldoze that road, traffic gets better in town. Like I mean that's a very great point.
Well, I have to say, so like the greatest moment for me in the whole meeting was your comments. And I'm not being biased, but
me too.
specifically the point that you got booed for, because the moment you said it, I knew who you were talking about. And I don't know if it was just the camera angle or if he was actually that close to you.
He was
like,
right next
Oh,
to me.
dude.
Larry
Me and
Phelps,
Mike. He was like
Larry Phelps is literally like breathing into your hip, basically,
I
like
saw
sitting down.
saw your reflection in his pulse body.
Yeah. And I was just like, I mean, the on Danta.
Yeah.
Like, to sit there and say that right in front of the man.
Well, the thing this is something that I've talked about before, but a lot of people in any kind of leadership position in a town, all of them will say, like, I want to be responsible and also accountable for the decisions I make. Every single one of them in their mind is thinking about, they actually don't mean that. What they mean is, I want the praise for all the great things I do for this town. That's all they really want. They don't want to hear about being accountable for bad or the negative consequences, even if they made a decision that had good and bad consequences. And they made the judgment call of, I'm going to do this trade-off. I'm going to say, okay, then the positives outweigh the negatives, so I'm going to make this decision. I'm not saying every decision they made was just like purely negative and terrible, but also I think it's hilarious that apparently the offense, the booing, was because I called him partially responsible for the nightmare that we're living in right now. Specifically things like the political environment we're in, where he, like you said, he has had some of the most impassioned, truly awful hot takes, the most demeaning, condescending words spoken by a town leader were from him. Mm-hmm. He's partially to blame for creating the environment that we're living in politically right now. He's partially to blame for the traffic that we're dealing with things like saving up impact fees to do the Dave Ramsey plan on roads, when TPUDC said you should probably, issue bonds and pay for it that way. There's other ways to pay for this. No. We want to pay cash for a road. So let's pay cash for it because Brentwood told us to widen a whole road for 3 lanes when it doesn't need to be all 3 lanes. Anyway, that's like verifiable. You voted for that. And so I want to ask everybody, and this is, I mean, maybe that would be my next comment. I actually said it in my Facebook reply to Terry when he had his non-apology apology, is this is what accountability looks like. Yeah, we can get to healing and all this stuff, but if no one's going to take responsibility for what they did negatively, that's the first step.
Right.
Like you can't get to healing if a bunch of people who did things wrong won't admit it first. And sometimes the first step is someone else calling you out and saying, you did something wrong.
Anytime you have a rift in a relationship, it takes both people recognizing that they have something to own, because it takes 2 people to have a relationship. So if there's 2 sides to an issue, hey, to come together and try and unify, both people have got to say, hey, you know what? Like, I screwed up.
Right. So I think this is what accountability looks like. It's the same thing we talked about with the impact fee discussion when the charter change happened. Like, what does accountability look like? If there is no threat that if you make the wrong decision, that someone's going to call you out down the road and say you made the wrong decision, then there's no accountability. It's only praise for when you do great things.
Mistakes have to hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to hurt. And then even if it's something as silly as 3 dudes sitting on a couch drinking beer on a podcast, they have to hurt. Like, but just to kind of close out the Larry Phelps thing, I know you guys are probably a little surprised that I'm going this hard at Larry Phelps. Larry Phelps built this relationship. Like, every time Larry Phelps had a microphone in his hand or in front of him, he would take digs at the Insider, at BN. This is not me getting back at him for it. This is just me continuing the relationship that he set the standard for.
Right. Well, I will say, so like I made that comment, got booed for it, whatever, but it's funny, I actually took notes. The way I did was here's the thing, if you're going to make public comments, again, what do you want? If you're going to get up in front of a town on the record and say something, again, everyone says I'll be accountable for the words I say, but if anything other than everyone just congratulating you and just telling you how great you are or clapping for you at the end of it because you bloated up the crowd with a bunch of your people. Anything else is an affront to like your humanity and like your decency and anything else. I literally just took notes. They're right here. I took notes as
Tiny
people were giving
a tiny notepad.
a tiny notepad. Which we say that it's to make me look bigger next to you guys and the camera.
Are we gonna sell that on eBay?
Yeah, I'll autograph it. The original. There's only one.
It's like a historic artifact right there.
Yeah, but I literally just made notes of things I wanted to say. But
It's working. I can see.
Yeah.
The only thing I see, it's working.
yeah, LF, it's working. And he wanted for the planning commission for us to find people that quote know what the town is, as if the people who are on the planning commission now. I don't agree with a bunch of the people on the planning commission. I think they're not making decisions that I agree with, but I wouldn't say they don't know what the town, whatever that is, what the town is. They know this town. They're just choosing different decisions than I would make, but it's just bananagrams type talk. And so again, getting called out for that's not mean. People complaining about how the town has changed, how it looks when they walk out their front door and it looks different, and that needs to be fixed by zoning or whatever that is. It's like I said, my first comment was, if you like the view, buy the view. Like, it's not if you like what you see, buy it so that it never changes, and don't get mad at somebody else for selling it. Anyway, I don't want to rehash my whole thing, but I actually made the point again. The whole there's nails in the tires, so we can't buy the car analogy is like, well, we don't like the idea of short-term increase in traffic for zoning changes because, that's going to be bad for us. It's like, well, it's like saying you don't want to take medicine to save your life because you might get a headache from it.
That was such a good
Yeah,
analogy.
I like that one too.
Yeah, and then the last thing, of course, is just that people kept saying that we're rushing it. And my kid wanted to make sure that he was screaming apparently at home when he heard me make the speech. You want to make it clear, my son does his chores. He does not complain about them instead of doing them. As I made the comment that this is like the last 6 months, people have been saying we're rushing the zoning change. Yeah. And it's like a kid complaining about doing chores instead of actually doing them. And if you actually just spent your time doing the chores, you actually would have already completed them. If those people had spent the last 6 months actually reading the zoning ordinance instead of spending all that time writing speeches about how they don't have time to read it, they actually would have read it. So how long are you going to hear people complain about rushing it? So that kind of is what happened in citizen comments. It was a lot shorter than I thought more people would be talking, but I think they all elected Terry as their spokesman.
I definitely think yes. I definitely think Terry got elected as a spokesman, and I also think, when you get your candidates in, and it's like it's a 3-2 vote in their favor on everything now.
We did it.
Everyone shut up.
I stopped going to meetings after BN one.
Yeah. So that, like I said, we wrapped up citizen comments. That's pretty much what happened. Like I said, I was a little surprised. I thought more people would be speaking, but I do think that they just basically said, "Hey Terry, go speak for us." So that happened. Before we get into a little more of the meeting, I know Mike, you shared an anonymous post by someone that the NAGs, the NIMBYs against growth, whatever they're called, they shared internally.
Definitely the new name.
Yeah. They
Facebook reel.
Yeah. they shared internally a screenshot of that post about how what you posted was misinformation, and then also had like again, this is a group that says they don't exist, because they're like on the edge of like getting in trouble, for like having a PAC, an illegal PAC. And I'll keep saying that until somebody actually looks into it. But they panicked and like all of a sudden they didn't exist anymore, but they're still sending out emails and talking about how large their group is and how they all have different opinions, the varying group of a set of opinions. And I will say again, just to remind you viewers and our NAG viewers, especially, we see all of your emails. We know every single email you send out. So, we know you're a group and we know you're still talking to each other. So that was cute. They think that what you said was misinformation, but they also wanted to kind of guide everyone on how to respond or not respond, which again I think is very interesting at this point. But I know the highlight of the BOC meeting was going to be the zoning. Well, no, actually, the highlight was probably just the new commissioners, the election that went exactly, how you guys said it would go.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the first thing. By the way, I just want to say I felt like I was in the presence of like true like superheroes because the Little League baseball team came in,
Oh yeah.
which those kids have to be exhausted from like showing up everywhere. You
It's
know,
been like 3 months, right?
I know, right? And they're in their uniforms still, show up
I
with their
mean, just
hats.
they're riding.
They're like growing out of their uniforms
yeah,
at this
yeah,
point.
yeah. A couple kids had mustaches now. It was
I'm just like I'm wondering when somebody's gonna like monetize the publicity, right? I mean, like surely there's
They're not
something
making.
they're gonna get.
The club has to be making money, right?
I mean,
yeah.
Some way.
It was cool though because I was like, oh, I know, I've seen these people on TV. Like
Yeah.
that's because I don't know. Well, I know one of the parents a little bit, but never met their kids. So it was fun to see them there. They got honored just after Citizen or before Citizen Comments. That was the first thing that happened, so that all the kids didn't have to sit around and wait for a bunch of boring adult talk.
you know, side note and totally like random tangent, but like this is this podcast, so like we couldn't not mention this, but it just kind of popped in my head because we're talking about the Little League, and I remember watching one of the games at one point, and I think somebody in our social circle like screenshot the game on ESPN, and and there was like Roddy, right? Chief of Police Roddy.
Yeah.
And we were all like WTF? Like
Yeah.
what the heck is Roddy doing up where
it
the game?
Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania or
Yeah,
something like that?
Pennsylvania, yeah.
So it's like, what is Roddy doing up? I mean, obviously like he's supporting the kids, supporting
Yeah.
the town. That's awesome. But like come to find out, and this is like months before the election, right? Come to find out, Joe Kurtzinger flew Roddy in his plane up to the game. And I just think it's so interesting that all these months later, the election happens, and allegedly Dr. Kurtzinger is the one or part of the group that let all this stuff out about Lisa
Yeah.
and Roddy. Just like
Small town charm, dude.
I mean, that's like small town charm to a T. It's like, hey, I'm gonna fly the chief of police up. I'm super connected to him,
Be super nice to you.
super
in front
nice
of
to
you.
him. But then it's like, oh no, like when politics comes to play,
You're going under the bus.
you're going under the bus immediately.
Yeah.
Take no prisoners.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Not to diss on the Nolensville Little League.
No,
but,
no, no.
like, Take any credit away
Jeez,
from
Caitlin.
them.
Or just Caitlin. Just
Yeah.
Chris.
What about the kids?
You just went after children.
Yeah. Think of the kids, man. So they got honored, and then they went on to doing the swearing in, which was fine. New commissioners went up there. They sat, of course, the same people that booed me and clapped for Terry Adams were the only ones clapping when the two new commissioners got up there.
Yeah.
Huh. Funny how that works. But that happened. So they all got up there and took their seats, and then got on to citizen comments, which we already talked about, and then they went about the business of figuring out first who was going to be mayor and then who was going to be vice mayor. There's not really much to say about that, is there? I mean,
I don't know why they took 20 minutes to figure it out when everybody in the room knew going in who's gonna be mayor.
yep. And who was vice mayor, right? Because Jessica Salamina.
I was kind of I didn't make a prediction beforehand because I could have seen it going to Joel. Mm-hmm. But it seemed like Joel wanted it there for a minute. I
thought so.
Until I think it was either Kate or Haley nominated Jessica.
I think we got to give more like of a spotlight to this though, like because literally, like I don't know how many episodes ago it was. We literally called this happening though.
Yeah.
Like
It was the last episode.
we said, the first meeting with the new commissioners, Haley Gallick's going to be made mayor.
Yeah, it was like 2 episodes. It was
Yeah.
it was the one we did at Chris's house.
I actually I have a DM. I'm not gonna name this person, but this person reached out to me and he's like, "Hey, what do you think is gonna happen during this meeting in terms of nominations?" And I actually told him, Haley's gonna be mayor, Terry Adams is gonna get the PC nomination, Ross Muirhead's gonna continue being on a PC, and I'm most likely gonna get kicked off the BZA. And legitimately, that happened. I didn't get kicked off. Like my term got extended for a month, and the
How generous.
funniest thing about that is that these nominations, it's all volunteers, right?
Sure.
So like if I'm serving on a BZA, which I've been serving for 3 months, I have not been to a meeting yet. There's no BZA business. They only meet when there's business. That's partly why I signed up. I figure I can help here and there. But I'm the only nomination that ever gets any negative feedback. Like if you notice, like anytime somebody nominates their appointee or there's a name, they're very generous. Even when they turn that person down, they're very generous. And when somebody nominates somebody, it's always a 5-0 vote. Like why would you vote against a volunteer?
Yeah.
I got on the BZA with a 3-2 vote. My term got extended just for like clerical ease. And then as soon as it got extended, Jessica Salamita had an issue with extending my term. She was okay with Bill Rooks getting the new spot because she was on the BZA. Partly also why I wanted to join the BZA because Terry and Jessica were on it. And I thought it would be fun to be in the same room. So because she left, they nominated Bill Rooks, who got in. And then there's 2 seats, mine and somebody else's, that expired. So instead of filling those, they just prolonged it for a month. And then Jessica, as soon as she realized that I'm getting one more month on there, as soon as she realized that, she's like, wait, I'm okay with Bill Rooks getting this new spot, but do we really have to extend these 2 seats? And then Haley, mayor at that point, she's like, yeah, like let's just, like we'll deal with this next month. Like we have a ton of nominations. So like let's put out, let's get more applications. Hopefully somebody that we can excuse getting rid of Mike can apply.
Let's go find somebody. Man.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Please, anybody with a heartbeat, please. But that, yeah, I always think it's funny that like I'm the only one that the board is allowed to take a giant on, and this happened multiple times. Like this is not the first time that like my nomination gets gets riffed. Every time my name comes up, it gets riffed, and that's the only name that gets riffed, which is kind of funny.
Dude, it's just because you're such a bully, man.
Yeah.
But the fun, like, I don't think there's anybody more qualified to be on a BZA than me. Like,
I mean, that's fair.
tell me somebody out there that's willing to donate their time, because it is a donation of my time at this point.
Yeah.
That knows more about zoning, that wants to be on it.
It's because it's all just politics at this point.
Right.
So I don't think they kicked you down the can just so they can find somebody else. I think they kicked you down the can because the nominations and the moves that were already made that night were so political. Like, I mean, how can you make Haley mayor, Jessica vice mayor, put Terry on the PC, and kick Mike off all
And
in one
consider
meeting?
putting the
like
mayor's
you at least got to
husband.
put a month in between.
Yeah, and consider putting the mayor's husband on the PC also.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
dude.
it's just a bad look, right? It's like
Yeah.
the night that you get made mayor, you kick the person who's most vocally against you out
Right.
in the public eye. Like,
Yeah. So that happened. I do want to kind of circle back though too because that all happens. It is what it is. You know, I think it's interesting that Jessica seconded the motion to make her vice mayor, her own her own
Nobody's
nomination.
going to do it.
her own nomination.
Which I just want to
I'm
point
gonna do
out,
it.
there is no rule against that, but there had been a motion to make Derek mayor again, and he refused to second his own nomination. He wouldn't do it, but Jessica was willing to do that. So take that for what you will. That she was willing to do that. I think it's kind of not the classiest thing to do, but she can do what she wants. There's
I
no
actually
rule
didn't. So I didn't catch this part of the meeting closely. Like, walk me through the steps. So somebody nominated Derek.
Joel did.
Joel
I believe,
did.
Yeah.
Joel nominated Derek, and there wasn't a second.
No, Haley seconded it. No,
No, there was no second.
no, there's no second.
So it just died.
Yep.
And then
Not without a second.
and then somebody nominated Haley, right?
Yep.
Who nominated Haley?
I don't remember. I don't recall.
Yeah,
Actually,
these are. I mean, this is
honestly.
a 4.5 hour meeting, Chris.
Yeah, dude. At that point, it was a
Touche.
foregone conclusion that was
Touche,
going to
yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it might have been. It might have been Joel that did that one too. I don't remember.
I don't. Yeah, there's no way. I have
mean,
a 20% shot of getting
The
it right.
point I'm trying to make, and maybe it didn't fall this way, but like, I think it's pretty clear how this election changed the makeup of the board, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, you have 3 people now that are very in cahoots with each other,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's a majority right there on
Yep.
pretty much everything.
I think
So-
but the best part about that is that the people that were voting for Jessica and Kate were okay with that.
Yeah.
Except they didn't know what they were voting for. They thought they were voting for NIMBYs.
Right.
They thought they were voting for people that are going to stop growth at all
Right.
costs. Like fight the developers, keep the town as is, close the gate behind us type of thing, right? That's what they presented themselves with. I mean I had a few posts since the BOC that like
Outline how that's not true.
right. So Kate literally in her first answer to the first question in this public forum that wasn't a public forum, it was just at that point after it got canceled, they sent out the questionnaire and they all answered them. The first question to that forum or to that questionnaire, she answered by saying that she's going to vote no to Goodall because they're not a worthy developer in town, and unless they go back and fix Nolan Mill, she's not open to a discussion about letting them continue building.
Yeah.
2 hours into her tenure, she voted for Goodall to build 444 homes in Nolensville. Outside of it, then this wasn't a buy right. This wasn't a there's no way out of this. This was a planned development that she didn't need a reason to vote no. There's no obligation from her to be fair in the PD process. She can vote no for any reason whatsoever.
So I think this is a good segue because this is like a little further ahead in the meeting. Maybe it's not the next thing that happened, but
there was some
but
other
it's
smaller-
certainly like the next big highlight of the meeting was Goodall.
Yeah, no, I
So,
think that's fair. That's fine.
Mike, walk us through like the logistics and the context because I don't think everyone totally understands what this vote was for.
what Goodall even is.
So Goodall is a development that's nestled in was that Baronswood?
Comes out, yeah.
So Baronswood goes all the way to Kidd, but the house is up about midway through. Goodall bought the land or is under contract for the land of the remainder of Baronswood and that big old farm next to Baronswood, right?
Yeah.
Going out east. It's like 300 acres. Please feel free to tell me it's 296, and I round it up 300. It's like 444 homes. This is their second PD. They got voted down the first time around, which, now that I think about it, no, never mind. So they got voted down the first time around. The landowner ended up suing the town, which it's still an active lawsuit, I think. But Goodall decided to try again, and they tried this concept. And it's like I said, it's a subdivision.
That's all it is.
There's some legacy lots that's think like the stuff in Rosebrook on Sunset, those fancy $7 million homes. There's a few lots off, I think there's like 7 or 8 lots like that off of Kidd Road. You drive in and it's 45-foot lots, 60-foot lots, and 80-foot lots. It's a subdivision by every definition. I was never for it. It's just we already have 15 Goodalls here.
Yeah.
For the lack of a better analogy, it's the same thing as Ben Creek, same thing as any other subdivision. It just is what it is. People that were for it were always for it because of all the residual impacts that it would bring. So they were going to be redoing a lot of road work. That whole Fly Battle McFarland intersection is getting reworked to a roundabout. They're putting in some sidewalks in Stonebrook. Obviously, there's like $10 million of impact fees and residual taxes from that. So on the surface, it looks like there's a lot of pluses, but in the long term, it's still an insolvent subdivision that's going to cost you money, and you're going to have to subsidize it by increasing taxes sometime down the road. So I was never for it. If it passed, it wasn't like a big deal for me. Like it's just another one, 1 out of 15 type of thing. But the NIMBYs against growth were very against it. And as the process was unfolding, they kept meeting with Goodall, and they kept asking him to do all these little concessions, like take out some lots over here to provide more green space for this member of NAG and all this crap. And sometime over the course of the second submission and last meeting, the leadership of NAG got okay with it. But they strung votes for Kate and Jessica, stopping all density and building roads.
Right.
It's almost like certain people in that group got what they wanted out of it.
Right.
That was it.
It was the whole thing of building roads, not density, was obviously a talking point. Everybody that was anywhere tied into politics knew it was a talking point. Knew you couldn't hold back the floodgates. You just can't. Yep. Some projects just make too much sense and provide too much relief short term to say no to. And I agree, and I do agree that Goodall was one of them. I would have not voted for Goodall. Goodall is not the last project that would have went there. I would have voted no because of what Nolensville is.
Right.
If you're middle of nowhere and you're struggling for growth, you take that. You take the short term relief and you figure out the future later.
Yep.
But if you're Nolensville and you're this desirable, you know that as soon as you already said no once and they came back, you can say no again. And if they decide to say screw it, we're not going to build in Nolensville, there's 15 other developers behind them that are going to try it still. Like this is a 300 acres.
Yeah, you're playing with a stacked deck.
Yeah, right. This is 300 acres that has direct access to I-24 and it borders Davidson County.
Right.
You're gonna get developed. There's no chance you're gonna hold back.
I think it was a very Boma move, in my opinion. Like that's exactly how Boma used to vote for things. It's just like, oh well, so you're bringing us a PUD.
It was a PUD. That was my knock
like
against
this was a plan development. It's like the same thing. It's like we don't have to vote on this because you don't have the zoning to do it. So like we're gonna make a special concession, but it's like for what? What are we getting out of it?
Yeah, 11 acres of park, which I do respect Joe Miller a lot about, like in regards of Goodall. He's the only commissioner that kept that was very constant in his opinion of Goodall by saying like we're giving up way too much.
Yep.
Like we're basically doubling their density for some road work that we don't need if they don't build.
Right.
And 11 acres of park. This is insanity. And he like it got to the point where I'm like, okay, Joel, just shut up. They heard your point 15 times, and you're not gonna change their mind. Just let them vote. It's happening. But he kept fighting. He's like, dude, he made a motion, which is insanity. He made a motion to increase those 11 acres to 15 acres, 4 acres. On 300-acre parcel, Goodall's the biggest developer in the country. They're owned by Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett owns them. And the voted it down. 4 acres. It was just 4 more acres. He's like you can tell that he was on the end of his rope. He's like, at least let me get a little bit here. Like let me at least have this emotional win. And they just voted it down. Well, I actually talked to him the very next day. I reached out to him. I'm like, should have asked for 50. Like you should have started at 50, worked your way down, got us 25.
Well, so that was just fascinating to me. I don't want to gloss over what you said, which is that at some point along the way between the election and now, all the nags got okay with that development.
Not all the nags. The people that
spoke for them.
The head of this non-group.
Yeah, the head of the group that doesn't have a head that doesn't organize.
Yeah, the headless non-group.
Yeah, I haven't heard one bit of outcry from the nags about that vote.
Right.
Because one of their precious this is kind of a more meta commentary that I've already kind of spoken on a little bit, but what I'm trying to avoid, and the reason why I was kind of not harsh but like stronger with my public comments, is I don't want to get to the same place we are in national politics where like you are not voting for someone based on like policy and like platform, or you do, but then once they get elected, you just turn into a sycophant for that person. Like that's like they can do no wrong. Like,
right.
It should be the opposite. It's I voted for you and you promised these things and now you're not doing these things. I'm mad at you. Like that should be the way it works.
I'm going to raise my hand on this because like, I mean, it's no surprise we're all friends with Derek.
Right.
Like I call Derek out at least once a month on the fact, kind of as a joke, but like Derek platformed in his election on not raising taxes. Yeah. And his first term in office, that's like one of the first things he voted on was a tax raise. Right. And it's kind of a joke because like no matter what, there's a lot of things out of his control. He had to do it.
Right. But
the point is, it's like just because I'm friends with the guy and I voted for him, I can agree with 90% of what he stands for.
I can actually kind of like I can even go further than that. So if you're doing the math and you heard me talk crap about Goodall, you should figure out that it passed 4-1. Joel Miller was the only no vote.
Right.
That means Derek Adams voted for it.
Sure.
And the reason why I didn't blast Derek Adams is not because I'm friends with him, is because I talked to Derek Adams. Derek Adams has told me
Right.
I'm going to vote yes to this. It makes too much sense. We need this. Disagree, but he never bullshitted me about that.
Right.
Kate Kortner got into office
Yeah.
on the promise that she's going to hold Goodall accountable,
Right.
and she's going to make them go back to Nolo and fix everything.
Right.
And until they do that, until they prove that they're
She will
worthy,
never vote in it. Yes.
2 hours into the tenure, she votes yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I do
No one's screaming about it.
I just think I do.
the
But I'm being negative. Like,
I do
what
think
the hell?
it is crazy, Daniel, and I don't want to like interrupt your point, but I'm going to for a second. I just think it's absolutely like mind-boggling that you had all these people for months fighting against density, putting up candidates who are going to be against density, and the whole reason was like, well, density is going to bring too many people here. There's going to be like the roads can't handle it. Like, how are the schools going to handle it if we build apartments and all this kind of stuff? And what did we get for it? So we got 444 homes, which the averages I've seen is like the average household for a single family home is anywhere between 3 and 4 people.
In Williamson County, right?
And at least 2 cars, at least. So that's at least 800 cars that we're adding to the roads and at least 1,200 residents.
And then at the same time,
That's insane.
At the same time, nobody's talking about how upset they are about Goodall, but every neg, and they still reference this in their emails, talks crap about Darcy.
Right.
It's 200 apartments,
Right.
ranging from 1 to 3 bedroom apartments, 100% geared towards single young people.
All I'm trying to figure out is, okay, you bring 800 adults, let's say.
880.
800
And their kids.
880 adults and their kids in a single family development, right? Versus like 200, fine, let's just say 2 people live in every apartment. So there's 400 residents that you bring in with 200 apartments. Where are these 1,200 people going to shop?
Yeah.
Like at least in this scenario with apartments and mixed use
They're going
and
to
density,
Kroger.
there's like stuff for them to go spend their money on. You bring all these people, it's like, what are they going to do? Like, fine, we'll get some Amazon tax revenue. Boo-hoo. Like,
I'm just shocked. This is the first time I've ever seen NIMBYs bite down, like eat their core principle.
yeah.
Like, this is going in their backyard, and it's the only reason why Goodall makes me smile. I don't like the development, never will. They're a good developer. They're a very run-of-the-mill developer.
It's because it was never about density. That's I think the real argument.
But the thing that makes me smile about Goodall, once it gets built, 50 years from now, I'm gonna be driving down Kid Road, and I'm gonna look over. I'm gonna be like, right in the NIMBY's backyard.
But see, like,
They voted for this. They got this.
in my opinion, it's like this argument was never actually about density, and they just proved it. It was always about like this kind of like upper class. I don't necessarily think it's like a racist thing, but it could be.
It's a classist.
But yeah, it's just this like suburban like lifestyle kind of thing where it's like, well, we don't want apartments because apartments somehow signify or symbolize some sort of like lower way of living.
We have a trailer park here, Chris.
I know.
There's a trailer park on our main drag in front
You
of
know
Town
what?
Hall.
And like, how many years have I been advocating that we just freaking like condemn that and move it up the road?
Yeah. Well, so
Sorry.
I'll go a step-
Sorry.
It's in a floodplain.
Sorry.
It's in a floodplain. Mother Nature will take care of that
I'm
one for
making
you.
notes of all the cuss words, so I know where to edit them out this time. I'll go one step further and say that I don't think that the whole NAG thing is really a grassroots movement like it is. It's organized by a few people who specifically are upset about specific developments that are in their backyards or in their front yards, or maybe across the street from their front yards, and they don't like the specific things that are there, and they fooled a whole lot of people into jumping in with them because they're and the density is just a cloak to put over I don't like this development across the street from my house. You don't like this development behind your house. Well, if we get together and create a group that says it's about density, we can get a whole bunch of people on board with this. And really what we're doing is we're just trying to get a couple of people elected who will vote against the things that you and I don't like. And jokes on everybody else in this group because the first time, literally the first chance they got to prove that it wasn't what I'm just talking about, they proved that it is.
Yeah, and where have we heard this song and dance before? During Better Nolensville.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, no. The current government works fine. We don't need to change the government. you know what? Like Jimmy will give up some of his power.
Let's fix it.
We
The
can
amendments.
do everything.
We can
you want.
amend. We can amend.
We
the
can
strong
amend
mayor.
this so that it's not a strong mayor system, even though that's just a state law. And and by the way, don't change. Like, yes, like we're gonna try and do that to appease you, but like, don't change, because if you change, we might lose impact fees.
Yep. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Small Town Charm. We decided to take what we just shot and cut it into 2 episodes because it was a lot. And so this is the end of part 1, but stay tuned because really soon we're going to release part 2 of this topic where we talked all about the Board of Commissioners meeting and some more zoning talk, fire department, town employees, all kinds of stuff. So we'll catch you next time on Small Town Charm. Small Town Charm, not Small Town Charm. Small Town Charm.
Harm.
Small Town Harm. Small Town Charm.
You'll get it one day.
We'll see you next time.